Guti.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Parul, for giving me this opportunity. And let me congratulate you, all the previous speakers who have covered this, all the complications very nicely. So that made my task very easy. So I'll be talking on wiping out the wipeout tips for the prevention. So most of these complications, which we have already talked about, they are the precursors of development of this snuff syndrome or the wipeout phenomena developing in a grade stage 5 or a stage 4 glaucoma patients who require trabeculectomy. This is defined as a permanent early postoperative irreversible reduction of visual acuity to less than 20 by 200 or to counting finger or less if preoperative visual acuity was less than 20 by 200 with no apparent ocular pathology. So no apparent ocular pathology has to be defined. So end stage 5 and 4 has to be defined, and these are the patients who are at risk of developing a snuff phenomena or the wipeout phenomena in if we do trabeculectomy. So that is a kind of a scary situation, but still we do attend this kind of patient who are coming to our OPD since glaucoma is still one of the poorly managed disease in ophthalmology, and most of the patients turn up to a glaucoma specialist very late when all everything is lost nearly. So still we have to work for that. So incidence, most of the studies till date are retrospective. The incidence of wipeout phenomena has now decreased, but because of improved investigatory procedures and a more meticulous approach to the surgery, the incidence is now very less. So if we go to the articles which are available, most of them are actually retrospective studies. The Indian studies has got reported about 7.7% of the wipeout phenomena in a small case series of 26, with the largest case series of Costa et al., which is of 508 case, and which says approximately 0.95. So approximately less than 1% is the chances of occurrence of this wipeout phenomena if we don't take the complications, intraoperative as well as the post-operative complications seriously in these patients who are at risk of developing wipeout phenomena. So what are the risk factors? Old age with high preoperative IOP, preoperative split fixation on the visual field. So remember, we have to do 10-2 field evaluation if possible before we take up these patients for trabeculectomy. Choroidal effusion during the operative or intraoperative, the post-operative phase, retrobulbar and the peribulbar anesthesia, and undiagnosed high IOP or severe hypotony in the post-surgical stage is one of the risk factor. Now, coming to the local anesthesia, peribulbar, retrobulbar, or subtenon anesthesia, usually subtenon is preferred one. Retrobulbar is absolutely known nowadays since it causes direct trauma and pressure on the nerve, localized pressure to the optic nerve due to the retrobulbar hematoma or hematoma within the optic nerve sheath can lead to further damage to the optic nerve. And the volume of anesthesia, if it is trapped, it can further cause a compartmental syndrome, and so the compression and leading to the further damage to the whatever is left with the patient. Adrenaline is another culprit in this scenario, which can cause vasoconstriction and leading to ischemia and decreased visual acuity. And there are a few cases which is reported with the hyaluronidase also. So coming to the pressure spike, early in the severe rise in the pressure can be seen in the post-operative period. And that is the time when usually we do pad and bandage of these patients and call the patient on the next post-operative day. And sometimes we do miss this early spike of the pressure. If the scleral flap is sutured tightly, fistula is blocked with a iris tissue or the blood or visco is left into the anterior chamber, these are the patient who should be monitored in the post-operative phase for early post-operative rise of the pressure. Or if the patient complains of pain or severe pain or throbbing pain with the vomiting, these patients, the bandage should be opened up, and then these patients should be evaluated for early rise of the pressure also. So coming to the intraoperative hypotony, it is associated with the occurrence of sudden intraoperative ocular hypotony during the glaucoma surgery, as mentioned clearly, very precisely by Dr. J.C. Das and also by Parul, that this hypotony has to be avoided at any cost, since these hypotony can be precursor of lot many complications. This may result in the optic nerve hemorrhage and decreased perfusion to an already compromised optic nerve blood supply, and it may also induce microembolic episodes that could damage the remaining nerve fibers. So post-operative hypotony with a choroidal effusion is also an independent risk factor for the unexplained visual loss in TVT studies. So how to prevent that? Anterior chamber maintenance has to be, anterior chamber maintenance can be placed, or repeated injection of the BSS, or putting the viscoelastic agent into the anterior chamber can prevent the early hypotony and flattening of the anterior chamber, and that has to be reformed once the surgery is over. Then the viscoelastic has to be replaced with the BSS, and then anterior chamber need to be refilled and reformed. Again, we can use releasable sutures as mentioned by Dr. Parul. Releasable suture can be planned in all of the surgeries. In my practice, I do put at least one releasable suture in most of the cases, and then they have to be modified and removed in the early post-operative phase to attain the target IOP. Timing of release of releasable suture is of paramount importance. So these are some of the cases which are at risk. The split fixation need to be seen very precisely in the pre-operative phase to actually mark out, and then we need to actually counsel the patient that this can be an outcome of surgery. However, the chances of occurrence is very less. So pre-operative evaluation, a complete evaluation need to be done in these high-risk patients, and more so the documentation need to be complete, since these are the patients who can land up into legal trouble also. So patient presentation can be unexplained decreased visual acuity more than 2 lines on the Snellen charts, and duration can be first week 2 post-operative and persisted for 3 months. In the post-operative periods, as I mentioned, these patients need to be seen early on also. If these patients complain of pain or vomiting in the early post-operative phase for the high IOP, and then most likely if that doesn't occur, then on the first post-operative day, everything need to be carefully evaluated, starting from the conjunctiva, the wounds, the leaky wounds from the to the bleb, and to the anterior chamber and the posterior chamber as well. The visual acuity and IOP has to be measured and to be evaluated at all the visits, and the visual assessment to be done. So to do things are to note any early undiagnosed post-operative SPIOP spikes should be monitored and should be very carefully monitored. Controlled IOP pre-operatively also. Use of subtenon anesthesia is or the subconjunctival or intracameral injection is preferred one. Avoid use of adrenaline in anesthesia, and more so when one is placing a retrobulbar or a peribulbar anesthesia. Use of antimetabolite to reduce the scarring. Use of AC maintainer, scleral flap should be thick to permit the closure without excessive flow. Application of the releasable suture is a must nowadays. NPDS can be an alternative since it allows no hypotony in the early post-operative phase, and the flat anterior chamber can be avoided in such cases. So, and it can be done. However, it requires little more expertise to be performed, and that very few surgeons are performing till now. So take-home messages: wipeout phenomena is rare, yet possible consequence of glaucoma surgery in advanced cases. One need to be very careful. Close observation in the post-operative period, and proper counseling in the pre-operative period is also essential. These are my references. Thank you very much, and thank you, Parul, for giving me this opportunity.